Howdy folks, and welcome back to World of Tanks with the mighty Jingles. I've got two replays for you today because they're both a little bit on the short side. And they both feature Soviet vehicles. The first one from XVM Camonet here in the Object 140 Tier 10 Soviet medium tank on the Prokhorovka map. And the second replay is from Ilubak on the Kharkov map in the LTTB Soviet Tier 8 light tank. And the reason I've picked these two replays is because they both showcase players who know exactly what their tank can do and position their tank masterfully to take advantage of the tank's strengths while minimising the tank's weaknesses. Starting off with XVM Camonet in the Object 140 here on Prokhorovka. Good medium tank players on Prokhorovka will always try to dominate the central ridgeline in the middle of the map. Dominating this position in Prokhorovka, if you're in a good medium tank, can be critical to your team's chances of winning, because not only does it allow you to dominate the centre of the map, but it also allows you to bring flanking fire to bear on enemy tanks on both sides of the map at the same time. The problem is it's bloody dangerous, and you have to be good to be able to pull it off. Generally speaking, when you see tanks rushing the middle and fighting it out for dominance here in the centre of Prokhorovka, they're either going to die horribly very quickly, or they're going to be the reason why your team wins. Of the available Soviet Tier 10 mediums, the Object 140 is probably the best to occupy a position like this, because while it doesn't have particularly good gun depression, it only has 6 degrees, it's at least 1 degree better than the Object 430 and the T62A. Also, the Object 140 does have a pretty tough turret. Just don't get too confident and keep the tank moving, because the Object 140's notoriously weak cupola on top of the turret, even after the recent turret remodel, is still very much a weak spot. Also, while the 140 does have that extra degree of gun depression over the 430 and the T62A, don't get too carried away and risk unnecessary damage trying to get that gun depression working. It's not so much about killing enemy tanks on the other side of the ridge as it is dominating this ridgeline and preventing them from getting over it. Where you're going to be farming the majority of damage from here is the tanks on the flanks, particularly up on the hill. Watch this. If you've ever been on top of the hill in Prokhorovka and you're constantly taking flanking fire from invisible tanks, this is probably where it's coming from. Now, obviously this does require assistance from teammates in spotting those tanks that are attempting to push over the top of the hill. But if you do have that assistance, just look at the damage that XVM Camonet is able to do from this position. As long as those enemy heavies stay in that position, he can just keep the gun firing and farm damage over and over and over. There's his first kill. He knocked out the Emil-2. Shots into the side of the turret, the WZ-111, the AMX, dead. The WZ-111's had enough. And who can blame him? You wouldn't want to sit up there taking shot after shot in the flank from targets that you can't even see. And then he does it again on the T-95. There's not a huge amount of cover available up on top of this ridgeline, but he's using what there is. Unfortunately, he got spotted, not by the T-95, but by the T-62A on the other side of the ridge. T-62A not in any immediate rush to come over here and fight him, but the S-tank at the rear of the hill does get a shot into him. However, Object 140, very tough turret. So the S-tank knows he's here. Unfortunately, the Carnarvon and T-34-2 over there are in severe danger of being overrun. While the Carnarvon's down, there's just the T-34-2, so he's going to have to risk taking some hits from the S-tank in order to support that T-34-2 and ensure that he doesn't get outflanked. And that's going to be dangerous, particularly with the Lerva there. The S-tank on the hill, he's got a kill on the AMX, and let's not forget that T-62A as well. Yeah, I think it's pretty much all over for the T-34-2 over there. There's a limited amount that he can actually do to help him from here, and he did take another hit from the S-tank on the hill. He's been sitting there waiting for him to show himself. The T-34-2 is down, the flank has been overrun, there's now nothing standing between all of those enemy tanks and the Grilla 15 at the rear. But while the Grilla 15 does have a fantastic gun, it's 100% useless unless there are visible targets for it to shoot at. So XVM Camonet moves over to the flank in order to light the targets up for the Guerrilla 50, and it's at this point where things could have gone horribly, horribly wrong, as the enemy team, sensing they have the advantage, and they do, start to get aggressive in the centre of the map. And yes, that is a BL-10 on the ISU 152. This battle was obviously recorded when the ISU still had the legendary Troll Cannon. Targets are lit up on the flank, although that LTTB is proving remarkably resilient, which is going to be, well, quite appropriate considering what you're going to see in the next battle that we play. The CDC, however, is down, looking for more shots at the LTTB. Doesn't really have them, but he does have shots at the S1, and since that thing only has 30mm of armour, it doesn't really matter how he tries to angle. A 100mm gun can completely overmatch it. Got a shot at the T44, but nope, doesn't penetrate. T44 misses as well. Now T95. It's not often you get shots like this at a T95. You can just about hit him on the other side of the embankment there if he aims into the upper side of the hull. Took a hit from the T44, but yeah, he's still got more than half of his health. Should be okay. Up. LTTB has finally made it to the Guerrilla 15. Kills the LTTB. There's the Top Gun, and this is where the T62A on full health, although not anymore, finally gets involved in the fight. Keeping the Guerrilla 15 alive, definitely a useful thing to do there, as the Guerrilla 15 plants one into the T62A, and there's also an E75 here who just hit an ineffective shot into the rear of the T62A, and I think the T62A has just realised that he's bitten off a little bit more than he can chew. One more shot, and the T62A is down, kill number 7, and suddenly they're not losing anymore. And you'll note that because he engaged those enemy tanks well to the other side of this ridge over here, that meant that the S-tank, who's still up there on the hill, wasn't able to take advantage of the fact that XVM Camonet has been permanently spotted for the last 2 minutes. Enemy T10 spotted and hit, and he's gone. That's now the last enemy tank remaining on the western flank. They can now turn their attention to the 4 surviving enemy tanks. Where did the T-40... Oh, there he is. That was actually a pretty good move from the T-44. Under that kind of situation, the instinctive move is to huddle up with the rest of the tanks on your team for mutual protection, but when the rest of the tanks on your team are getting carved up in that kind of shooting gallery, getting the hell away from them was the smart thing to do. Unfortunately, it didn't keep him alive for too much longer, and he's down too. 3 enemy tanks remaining. The WZ-111, the S-tank, and the Mutts, and they're all up there. And there's the S-tank, and unfortunately for XVM Camonet, he's fired so many shots during the course of this match that he's expended all of his standard APCR ammo, and now he's spending money. And of course the premium ammunition on the Object 140 is high explosive anti-tank, and that shot went into the tracks of the S1, which acts as spaced armour, so no damage. Bummer. This shot, however, yeah, that'll do the trick, and there's the Radley Walters. 8 kills, and there's a potential Pools medal up for grabs here for 10 kills if he can just land a shot on that Mutz. He only has 7 health remaining, but, well, the Mutz doesn't really seem to want to die. Although what he wants and what he's going to get are 2 entirely different things. Oh well, no chance of a Pools medal, but he can definitely get a 9th kill. There's 1 into the WZ-111. Come on, come on, come on. And he's got him. 9 kills, 1 short of the Pools medal. So, Ace Tanker, unsurprisingly, Radley Walters, High Caliber, Sniper, and of course Top Gun. 8,351 damage done, and surprisingly, despite the fact that he was reduced to firing premium ammo, towards the end of that match he actually made a 21,000 credit profit, although it should be noted that if he hadn't been running a premium account, he would have lost 17,000 credits at the end of that match. So, XVM Camonet in the Object 140 on Prokhorovka, that one was all about the positioning. He didn't actually move the tank too far from the starting point for the whole course of that game. He kept the tank moving once he was in the right spot, but he didn't really move too far from that spot in order to produce that nearly 8,500 damage game. Now we're moving on to Ilabak in the LTTB on Kharkov, and he's going to be doing pretty much more of the same, except this time in a Tier 8 light tank. Get ready for a masterclass in how to use the LTTB on Kharkov. There are a couple of things that this tank has going for it. First, it is ridiculously well armoured for a light tank, both the turret and the hull, It has the best armour and hit points of any tier 8 light tank. And that top, very long barrelled 85mm gun is pretty useful as well. Also, the power to weight ratio of this machine is ridiculous, and that's exactly what Illubac is taking advantage of here in the opening seconds of this match on Kharkov. That, and of course, the armour. But it's the insane speed of this tank that allows him to get to where he needs to be, and the good armour, and that was a hit in the side from a Type 64 which bounced off the armour. The first hit from the Walker Bulldog damaged his gun barrel, so he's going to use his repair kit to get the gun back up and running, and now that he's where he wants to be, he's going to start humiliating the enemy team. And just as in the previous game, for the majority of this match he's not going to move too far from this spot, because he doesn't need to. Not with targets lined up like that for him to shoot at. So now that he's in position, and he's basically getting the gun working on all of those targets down there, how does this tier 8 light tank compare against other tier 8 medium tanks, as far as the armour is concerned? Well, it has the same sloped frontal hull armour as the T-44. It actually has thicker frontal hull armour than the Object 416. It has thicker armour than the Centurion, thicker hull armour than the T-34-2 and the Panther-2, and it actually has better hull and turret armour than the TVP and the Japanese STA-1. And none of those tanks have this machine's speed and manoeuvrability. How about the gun handling? Well, as you can see, he's not been doing too badly, has he? Mostly he's not even aiming. He's just right-clicking the enemy tank, auto-aiming, popping out and snapping that shot off. And he's doing that for very good reasons, because there are a whole bunch of enemy tanks lined up down there just waiting for him to expose himself so he can take a shot. WZ-131 almost burned to death. I think he anticipated that somebody else was going to take the kill there, so instead he finished off the Type 59, but nobody had bothered to finish off the 131, so, well, if you're not going to, I'll take the kill, thank you very much. The reason he's been able to do so well by mostly just auto-aiming and snapping the shots off without even bothering to aim is down to a couple of factors. First, if you fitted the improved ventilation, this tank has a sub 2 second aiming time, and secondly, the rate of fire is astronomical. He's firing a shot every 4.5 seconds. So even if he does pop out, take the shot and miss, it doesn't really matter, because he can do it again 4.5 seconds later. And despite the fact that there are multiple enemy tanks down there queuing up and just waiting for him to do exactly that, because this tank's turret is located to the front of the tank, he doesn't actually have to expose an awful lot for very long in order to take the shots. And if they do get lucky and hit him, he's got 90mm of sloped frontal hull armour and a 90mm thick turret to keep him safe while he does it. And it has mostly been doing exactly that so far. Just about the only bad thing about the LTTV was its gun depression. It used to only have 3 degrees, which was just disastrously bad. It meant that even on level ground you could have a hard time shooting at other tanks right in front of you if you hit the slightest bump or depression in the terrain. Well, it's since been buffed to 5 degrees of gun depression, which is still not good, but, well, as you can quite clearly see, it's good enough in the right position. And that's the name of the game in this particular World of Tanks video. Knowing what your tank can do, and putting it into the best possible situation for it to be able to do what you know this tank can do. Something else that the LTTB is good at, although he wasn't purposefully going for the ram there, he was trying to get around the Walker Bulldog. The Bulldog saw it coming and tried to cut him off. But because of the insane speed and power to weight ratio and the fact that this tank does have 90mm of armour all across the front, makes it very good at ramming other light tanks. In fact, if you were to fit a spall liner to the LTTB, enemy medium tanks that see a light tank and think, haha, I will ram you and nom nom on your delicious light tank tiers. If they ram you in the front, well, they're going to do some damage to you, but they're going to take more damage than they expect in return. Meanwhile, there are only 2 enemy tanks left, that Tiger and an IS-2, and he's already racked up 4,000 damage. With a gun that only does 180 damage per shot, it's all about keeping the gun firing, and keeping the gun firing without taking damage in return. Knowing where to put the tank, and how to make the most of its strengths, and minimising its weaknesses. One more kill for a Randy Walters. The Tiger is finished, there's just the IS-2 left. He can afford to take a hit from the IS-2, although obviously he'd prefer not to. And he takes a hit from the IS-2. Okay. Can't afford to take another one. I mean, the IS-2 could low roll and he might survive, but he'd probably not. So you want the Radley Walters. You're going to have to kill the IS-2 to get it, but you don't really want to take any chances and die before it happens. So wait for it. Wait for it. There he is. And back off. IS-2, of course, has a terrible aiming time. And I think he's counting on the IS-2 wanting to get another kill. Because the IS-2 knows as well as he does that he can one-shot him. Ah, crap. He's going to have to go for it and take the risk. And, yep, he fires first. 8 kills, Radley Walters, LTTB, Tier 8 light tank on Kharkov. It's all about knowing what your tank can do, knowing what you can do based on how well you know you can play that tank, identifying on the current map where you need to put that tank to make the most of what it can and cannot do. So that was Ilbach in the LTTB and XVM CamoNet in the Object 140. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.